Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Embodiment of Soul Care video podcast number 15.
Rocking it into the 15.
Yes, that feels pretty good actually. So grab your favorite beverage. We
Yes.
actually switched out tonight. I switched
I
over
didn't
to
get
the
the
GT
memo.
again. Kelly didn't get the memo and she almost spilled her tea, so she almost had to go get her own GT because Spirit was
Yes.
telling her and nudging her to switch it out. But it didn't happen, so she's stuck with tea.
I
But
know.
find your favorite beverage, take a
Boring.
nice little sip.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to settle in tonight. Tonight is the topic of self-love. We're going to talk about why is self-love often lacking in ourselves and why is it important? Why do we want to cultivate a practice of self-love? Why do we want to think about it? Why do we want to dive into it? And, why is it something that kind of in the background, I think a lot of us do think about, but maybe not consciously enough. So we'll talk about that tonight. So kind of where I wanted to start is, in terms of, let's look at why can self-love often be lacking in us. And I think a lot of it comes from, kind of, we talked a little bit ago about those factory default settings, that we all have related to so many things. And one of them I do think relates to, well, if I have, what comes up for people when you think of self-love? And, people might think narcissist or self-centered or, kind of more the ego side of what self-love might be, being selfish, caring more about yourself than you do about others, kind of those sorts of traits, right? And then it almost switches into, so the polar opposite of that, if you don't want to be selfish, of course, you're going to be more the martyr mentality, more the, I'm going to give to others before I give to myself mentality.
Right.
And it goes right back to, I know you've said this before, Kelly, it's like, well, in an airplane, you need to put your mask on before you put the mask on for the person who needs help next to you. Why? Because if you're not centered and if you're not breathing, right? How are you going to help somebody else breathe and thrive and live, right? So we really wanted to bring tonight's conversation back home. So much what we talk about is being the love within. And that starts with loving yourself so that that love can emanate out, not from the outside in, not from finding love outside and bringing it in, but having love within and allowing it to emanate out. So that's going to be the theme for tonight. So I don't know, Kelly, do you want to dive into that a little bit as well?
Yeah, I can dive into it a little bit because there's something that comes up when you say that. And I'm sorry that my head's cut off. And I'm also sorry that I'm so blurry tonight because Casey is like brighter than bright can be with her new PC. And I am still with the old looking dusty, as my nephew pointed out. So anyways, I apologize for that because I just looked over again at myself and it throws me off. So I'm going to just focus right here.
Makes you look like you have your aura, just like
Exactly.
glowing.
Right. Oh yes, so much so. Or a dusty aura, one or the other. I mean, come on.
Dust off that aura.
Yeah, I know. So what you just said kind of made me think of something. A lot of people, they're like, oh, that's all fine and good, self-love, loving myself, but how do I do that? How do I even start when I can't stand anything about myself, right? And so something that I, have told people to use and that I use on days that I'm like really beating myself down is something that we talked about in another podcast. Weeks ago, maybe at the beginning, where, you just focus on something that brings you joy. Just even for a moment, I don't know if that's a flower or a bird or a tree or the wind or like getting on your screen, looking at old pictures of whatever, but just something that takes you vibrationally into a better spot. And then if you just keep doing that and you allow that feeling to just continue even for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, and then it just kind of overtakes you for a few moments. And that's the beginning of learning how to love something truly for what it's doing for you, which is bringing you more grounded, bringing you more centered. The self-love can be tricky because we do have the egotistical mind, the psychological mind that's constantly pushing us out of that space. Okay, I love myself for a moment and then, I didn't make this dream happen or I didn't do this or I didn't do that. Well, that's when it goes, like you said, Casey, kind of into the self-talk mode. Like, how are you talking to yourself? What are you saying to yourself on a daily basis? You know, if you think your only purpose here is to create and manifest that dream, you're completely wrong. Because the main purpose for you being here is getting in touch with you and knowing that you are all that really matters for yourself. And then everybody will probably say, well, what about this? And no, this person matters and my child matters. And I get that. I get all these people matter to you. But what we're talking about is the deep depths of what you're truly trying to connect with here in this human experience. And that is to become more and more connected with self and loving yourself so unconditionally. I guess you could call it unconditionally. Would you call it unconditionally, Casey, or would you call it something different? Because I know some people have like a little bit of an issue with the unconditional thought. And of course we don't want to live conditionally, but I don't know. How do you feel about unconditional love?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Yeah.
I do really like it almost as you apply it to yourself first
Right.
to see, how, I mean, I think the one thing we tend to say is we can love our children unconditionally, that there is a part of us that we can love them unconditionally, no matter how they're behaving or what's going on, what thoughts they have. And maybe we give them that leeway because they're under the age of 18 and they're learning. And, we have this paradigm, like after the age of 18, you're supposed to be cooked and you've learned and you should be, like well on your way by then, not remembering that we all, develop throughout our lives. And I think that, I don't want to go into like any kind of inner child thing per se, but I do think that actually having unconditional love for yourself is a beautiful thing, because that's where you can hold space without conditions, so it's like you can do something. It doesn't mean you approve, like just like your children, they can do something you don't approve of or think is a good behavior, but it doesn't change your love for them. Kind of like sometimes you don't like someone, but you still love them. And I think it is important to have that for yourself, because if you don't, then you're just going to always fall into some kind of pit of self-judgment on some level that you'll never be able to fully get out of. If you can't have a space of pure unconditional love as your vessel, almost, that holds the space. So yeah, I think that's super important. And if that's confronting in any way, or if the word unconditional brings something up for somebody, I think that's a really good thing to look at, right? Like what, because if you can't hold that space for yourself, who else is gonna, number one, it wouldn't even matter if someone else holds it for you, because you won't accept it. So even if, someone else does love you unconditionally, maybe your parent loves you unconditionally, but if you don't love yourself unconditionally, you're not going to fully accept their unconditional love. It might feel nice, it might be good, but you won't fully let it in, So I think if you don't start and have some space within, at least like the witness, like we talked about last week, if the witness within you can hold a space of unconditional love for yourself, that then things happen inside of, and maybe you don't approve of everything you do, or wow, I really could have acted better in that situation. But having the witness hold the space allows you to step into an improved you the next time, versus the self-flagellation, of, oh my God, I should have done better. Which I've really been thinking a lot about. I mean, we've talked before, like I'm a pretty intense perfectionist. I've had a lot of pretty nasty self-talk over the years. I mean, nobody could have said nastier things to themselves than me. Like nobody's been a bigger bully of themselves than I have. And what's been real sobering, truthfully, my son has a lot of those traits. Both Teddy and I have a lot of that kind of energy. And so certainly my son, he has a lot of that perfectionist energy as well. And it's been really hard at times. And sometimes he'll actually speak, I'm stupid, or just like, how could I have done that? No, it's like, wow, like I see my own internal thoughts that I no longer verbalize out there. I'm well behaved enough by now that I keep all that in, and nobody knows that I'm silently flagellating myself, right? 'Cause I have a nice little smile on, but he's young enough that sometimes it comes out, and it's like, it's a good opportunity. I'm glad he does, so that I know some of that is going on internally, so I think it can be a tendency to be too much of a perfectionist, too hard on you want to be hard enough on yourself that you challenge yourself to be a better person, right? It's that balance point, but you don't want to be so hard on yourself that you just, are going to be disappointed almost with everything you do, because nothing's quite good enough. So there's no room, I do think, as you're saying it, that a level of unconditional love for yourself is like a prerequisite to self-love. I
Right.
mean, that's
Right.
what self-love is, because
Mm-hmm.
without that, there's no real space for it. Because
Right.
none of us are perfect. Something's going to happen. You're going to do something that you don't consider, at your level, or someone's going to violate your boundary and you're going to let them, or, something, right? So
Right.
the only way inside of that to still hold a sense of self-love is incredibly important. And those are the times when you're going to notice it the most, right? Or you can notice it after, and then in that moment, it's always a present moment thing, right? Even if you didn't have self-love for yourself 5 minutes ago, you can do it now. If you didn't have it 50 years ago, you can do it now. You can only have self-love now. And
Mm-hmm.
now is the only moment where self-love makes a difference. If you
Right.
loved yourself 5 minutes ago, but you're not now, it makes no difference right
Right.
now.
Right.
So I think it's a beautiful practice in, am I in ego? Am I in spirit? If you're in spirit, you are in self-love. If you're in
Mm-hmm.
ego, you're not. That's it.
Right.
Right? I
Right.
mean, pretty
Right.
simple. And the only one that matters, the only moment that matters is now.
Right. That's exactly. And, and I think going into that ego versus spirit, it's almost like, I think that the ego would almost be like, I'm prideful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
prideful
It'll
instead of
twist
I'm
it.
right. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very prideful. I'm, like the superhero,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I love myself. And it's like, no, that's not true
Yeah.
self-love. Yes, you can be
Yeah.
proud of yourself, but
Yeah.
that pride is more of an egotistical, psychological human experience than it is from the pure source of love. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think God walks around up in heaven. Maybe he does. I don't know. We'll all be surprised, saying like, "Oh, I'm pounding his chest." I don't think that's his thing, right? So I think, it's kind of goes back to that, like, what would Jesus do, or what would God
Yeah.
do? Thought, like, how do
Yeah.
they love themselves? How do they carry themselves in love? And
Mm.
and when you were talking, it kind of brought up something else for me, and I wrote it down. With in any type of relationship or manifestation or experience in life is so much harder when there is no self-love. I mean, in order to really create and manifest and to have solid, loving relationships is to first love yourself, because then you're in alignment, right? If you're not in love with yourself and you're not feeling that self-love and that current of attachment to source, because that's all source is that love energy. And the second we step off of that path of feeling that self-love, we are off the path of source. And source cannot come off that path to join us because they do not exit from that current of love. And so, in order to get what it is you desire in life and what it is exactly that you want in life, you must reside on that line of love for self. And then you can do anything. And you'll see that things just start to happen so rapidly in that sense.
That was such a beautiful way of saying it, Kelly. I love that.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I told Casey I didn't know what the hell I was going to say tonight, and it just came out.
That's
So,
perfect. Keep going.
yeah, the other thing that I was going to say is the comparison to others. Okay,
Mm,
that's another like deep self-talk, and it's
yeah.
something to ask yourself every day. Am I upset with myself because I'm not meeting the expectations of others? Am I not as good as that person? Am I not as pretty as that person? Am I not as
Yeah.
smart as that person? Like,
Yeah.
where are you letting out your energy? Okay. And then remembering that none of that matters. And that's kind of what I meant at the beginning of this. Not like,
Mhm.
oh, nobody matters, screw them all. But nobody matters in the course of the self-love, because if you're comparing, you're not loving,
Yeah.
and if you're contrasting, you're not loving. And if you're
Mm.
just trying to meet one specific goal, you're not loving, because you're missing everything that there is. Source energy, God, all of these things, universal energy, all these things that we refer to are all love. And everything on this planet is love, unless the ego takes course, unless self-love falls apart. And so if you can do anything, there's so many people that are like, well, I just don't know what to do during this time of chaos. All these protests, all this craziness, I'm just not, it's like the NBA. I have to say something about all these professional athletes. Like, they're just stopping playing. Why? Isn't that something they love to do? Isn't that something that brings joy to other people? Maybe it's that one little glimpse of happiness that someone has for the day that brings them into the awareness of self-love. And we're just going to stop. Like, think of the bigger picture. I want everyone to think of and that's like on a big scale, but I want everybody to think of the bigger picture. If you want to make a difference, love yourself, put yourself where you enjoy to be, and the vibrations will change and the world will change. But the second you start conflicting and contrasting and taking things away and ripping things away from yourself that bring you enjoyment to then center on something of negative sense and negative vibration, you change the whole world into a negative vibration. Bring the love back within. Go to the things that you love to do, and everything will calm and settle. And this is the thing that everyone is missing. And, you know, self-love right now is so hard for people because they're comparing each other. Oh, you want to vote for that guy? You're an idiot. Oh, you don't believe in Black Lives Matter? You're an idiot. How selfish you are. And it's like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, people aren't even hearing each other because they're so disconnected with themselves. And so bringing that in, that self-love is pure as a connection as you can get to source. Get there and you will change the world, and you will change the way you see the world. Your life will change forever. No joke.
Yeah.
You know, so
I love what you're saying about joy as an access to self-love, you know, because there's a lightness to that. You know, last week we talked about feeling light as a feather versus feeling weighed down. And I can speak to that. You know, I mean, there was a real, like, you know, growing up, I did have such a great life, but I had this deep down like sense of guilt that I had such a great life and there were so many people suffering. You know, that's kind of the martyr sense. Like, okay, well, I'm just going to go down there with them, you know, because if I'm in too much joy, then, you know, I mean, I had this like complex about it, almost like I was doing the world any good by wallowing in my martyrdom and my sadness. Right. And then the more, you know, that's when I said how life-changing that book was for me, Power versus Force, with the levels of consciousness calibration. It was the first moment I really realized, wow, the vibration of joy, the vibration of love does more for the planet than any of this wallowing ever could, right?
That book,
And that's why it was so powerful for me. And it was the first time I really took a step out and started to think, wow, if I could really do more good that way, you know, and I was listening to Esther Hicks again today, one of their older books, and it's so great. It sounds just like you. It's awesome. I was like,
she's so awesome.
And it was very similar. It was like, what if your purpose here is joy? And the more joy we bring, the more we raise the vibration. Maybe that is the natural state. And we've taken ourselves out of the natural state, and now we're living unnaturally, you know, nature, you know, so I was listening to this beautiful thing the other day about like, what is natural? What is nature? You know, and in our basic nature is that sense of flow and well-being. And we've taken ourselves out of the flow, out of the river. You know, let's jump back in, let's swim, let's dive, let's flow, let's stop swimming up current, or, you know, whatever that is, right? Like allow yourself to be flowing down the current rather than trying to swim upstream. So, and what I like about that is it's a shift of perception. You know, we've talked about, you kind of ended with that. It's like, it's really, the power of perception is so strong here, because it's like how you perceive self-love, or how you perceive what's okay, how you perceive that it's power. If you have a belief and a perception that it's powerful to be in joy and that contributes to the world, well, then all bets are off, right? You're going to be like, oh, well, what brings me joy? What brings me flow? And then that's just going to naturally spill over to enhance other people's lives if you have that belief. But if you have a belief kind of on the opposite side, then you're going to stop the flow, and then you'll look around at your life and wonder, well, why isn't it flowing? You know, so a lot of it is, how are you perceiving what self-love is and the value it actually brings to yourself, which is great, and to others. You know, both are important. But first, you know, be okay with bringing that value to yourself, that you're just enjoying the things you enjoy. That's wonderful. You know, don't feel guilt over that. So I think there is this interesting little undercurrent of, what are you feeling guilty about? If you now say, you know what, like going to the gym, let's say, oh, well, I can't make time to go to the gym. I know I need to go, but then I take time away from my family, or, maybe that's just like an example, but it's like something that, if deep down, you have an intuition that something would really make a difference for you, like pick one thing, whoever's listening to this, pick one thing that, deep down, your intuition's screaming at you that you really know would be of benefit to you, whether it's health, whether it's, health could be emotional, physical, mental, right? On any of those levels, what would be beneficial to you? And just say, put it in your schedule, put it in your calendar, do it, even if you're taking time away from others. And you'll see that when you come back to your family, you'll have, it's kind of like that, you'll fill your own, drip, 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 you'll fill your own bucket, or you'll fill your own vessel so that now it spilleth over, right? That whole idea. Yeah. So it's like, if that can, you have enough self-worth and self-value that's important, make yourself important. That's where, that women's group I had started, my tagline was make your radiance a priority.
Right.
And, it's like, make you a priority.
Right.
And have that be okay, have the perception that that's okay. And then that will spill over, and then other things can be a priority too. But if you're down at the bottom of the list, something's going to give. Your health is going to give, your mental health, your physical health, your overall well-being, something will give, because this human body, this vessel, is only as good as what we put in. And that includes our perceptions, that includes our beliefs, that includes the food, that includes the exercise, that includes the whole picture of it. Right. And, we all know, if you don't take care of your vessel, might just not be there. Right. So, it might just decide it doesn't want to be around anymore. Or it might exist in ways that, are uncomfortable for you. So, just challenge yourself to make that window of time, to have the thing called, oh, I could never possibly do that. I could never possibly fit that in. And I say that from experience. The last year, I've started doing all kinds of things that before I had all kinds of excuses why I wasn't doing them. There were great excuses. Trust me, really convincing. Right. But that was also largely perception. It was how I was perceiving it. And it was how I was putting myself in a box and not allowing myself to think, okay, how could I get creative? Or how could I just stand for something and be like, you know what? I am going to take this time. This is important. I'm just going to do it. You can have whatever thoughts or opinions you want about it. And the more you have that energy, like you were talking this week to somebody about that mama bear energy, and it could be papa bear, mama bear, whatever gender you want to apply to that. But it's like, if you have that energy, like, I'm important, this is important, I'm going to set this boundary, I'm going to do this thing. A lot of times it's almost like the Red Sea, like it just parts, right? And that's so much of what you were saying, it's like, if you stand your ground on that, the energy anchors. And it's like you were describing earlier, the energy of spirit literally anchors so strongly that the seas will part, I mean, exactly. You thought were not possible, suddenly become possible, or you find that little tiny window where boop, I fit that in. I fit that 5 minutes in to meditate, and I fit that hour in to go to the gym, and I did it 3 times a week, and I'm proud of myself. And that's the other thing, turn around. And when you do accomplish something, when you do, make a step forward, pat yourself on the back. That's part of self-love, is acknowledgement. You partially want to push yourself, and you also want to celebrate your victories. You want to celebrate, how far you've come. I think that that's a lot of it. Like you said, we can spend so much time in comparison that we forget to say, okay, compared. Oh, that author I love, Jordan Peterson. Yeah. He has such a powerful book, 12 Rules for Life or something like that. But one of his rules is exactly that. It's don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Yes. So if you're like, wow, I'm actually, because I can look at my life and be like, wow, compared to 20 years ago, compared to 10, compared to 10 days ago, compared to 10 minutes ago, hey, I've come really far. I'm really proud of myself. I can still go farther, and I still have other things to accomplish, and I still have more to grow into. But if you can be in the present moment, it comes back to the present moment again, right? If you can acknowledge yourself in the present for how far you've come, that is a big step towards self-love. And the more you can keep that present, then you are in your spirit self. The minute you go, yeah, well, I didn't do that. I haven't done that yet. And that's also a self-talk thing. You can say, wow, I haven't done that yet. I can't, I'm really committed to doing that, versus I haven't done that yet. I'm such a loser, right? There,
Right.
I was talking to my son the other day. I said, sometimes it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. It's the tone of voice. It's the expression. So, as you're listening to yourself talk, it's not always the words. Sometimes it's where it's coming from. You can say the same exact words from ego and from spirit, and they will resonate in your being in a completely different way. So, that's something to play with as well.
I like that a lot. And, that kind of goes to the whole thing too, that if you're not respecting yourself or loving yourself, how do you expect someone else to love and respect you?
Yeah.
Right.
You're not going to attract that.
You're not. No. And that's huge right there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to use this as an example. Like, let's say that you're down on yourself all the time and all you're thinking about is how much you can't stand a certain gender. Be like, oh, I can't stand men, or I can't stand women, but I'd really like to find somebody to date. Who the hell do you think is going to come your way? Somebody who's down on themselves, that is the epitome of the shit you just said about why you don't like men or why you don't like women.
This is what they are like. Right. And then what shows up is what they are like.
Exactly. Because you're putting so much energy into that thought, as opposed to, I understand that I've had a bad run. I understand that I'm not always nice to myself. I need to get better about that. And I want to be better about that because I do love myself truly. And I find such joy in people that do this, and that. Or even if you're manifesting a job, saying the same thing at the beginning about yourself and then saying, and this is the type of job that I would love to be in. Oh, I'm going to bring this to me. So it's like, it's that whole thing. Whatever you have growing inside of you is exactly what you're going to get in the world around you. So, and I think we said that last time, you are what you think about all day long. So be careful what you're thinking about. Be careful about your self-talk. Implement self-love on a daily basis. I don't care, like I said, if it's only for 2 minutes a day, because eventually that's going to spill over and it's going to take over the entire being. You will eventually spend an entire day enjoying being in your own presence, because hell, be a little bit cocky sometimes and know that you're great. I mean, we're all such loving beings, and we come here and we just lose track of that so quickly, because of the bad self-talk we hear from our parents to themselves, or our friends, or the things we see on a television set. I mean, I know there's cartoons that my kids watch that later in the day, they're saying like really mean things to each other. And I'm like, where did you learn that from? Because I'm not that parent that sits there and is like, what are you watching? Because I got other things to do. I'm not concerned about what you're watching. I put what I thought was a good television station, Disney, on, and somehow you're picking up like bad language. But it's amazing how all of that can influence that mental state. And that's always what Casey and I are trying to tell everybody too, is to get out of the head and back into the heart. This mind of ours is a maze of crap. It's a total, hurricane, literally, as we are having, and fires. And it's all the things that you see bubbling up in nature because we have so much of it inside of our minds, and our minds create so much. So if everybody could think about that for a second, all the turmoil that you have going on and all the turmoil we have between each other, because it's really within, is creating catastrophic issues in our environment. But when everybody was really quiet and had to stay home and go and sink within, the earth started healing itself. Thoughts. Let's think about it. Okay. So, there's all those things, all those connections to start making. When you are with yourself, when you are connecting with yourself, everything will get easier. That whole saying, I don't even remember who said it, and maybe you do, Casey, but love deeply and you will walk with God. Who said that? I don't remember, but somebody said it. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
But love deeply and you will walk with God. I mean, the best way to connect with God is to love yourself. Yeah. And because, then you're essentially loving him. So go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, no, it reminded me of, I've always loved that Jesus had 2 commandments. One was love thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul, and love thy neighbor as thyself.
Right.
And that was it. And on everything, you can hang all the rest of the commandments, right? Because if you're doing those 2, then you're well within and you're well without.
Right.
As within, so without. You don't need the don't kill, don't no adultery. You don't need those
Right.
ones if you're doing
No.
those.
Right.
So I've
Because
always
you
loved
would
that. And it's very
never,
similar to what you're saying. It's
yeah,
all both are based in love
right.
within and love of others. And that's
Yeah,
it. He's like, guys, there's like two commandments here. Okay. Just
that's
do
it.
these two and you're all set.
So true. I never even thought of it that way. That is
I love
honestly,
it. I
that
love
is
it.
so true, because
Yep.
everything does branch from those two things. Because
Yep.
if you're loving your neighbor as you love thyself,
Mm-hmm.
well, actually it's thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, however it said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then you would never commit adultery. You would
Mm-hmm.
never kill anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You would never create weapons of mass destruction. You would never, none of those
Bully
things.
yourself or bully others,
Right. You
Yeah.
never would. You would never do any of these extremes to harm or hurt anything,
Yeah.
because you're inside of them too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to harm them, then I'm truly harming myself and I'm harming God.
Right.
So if you have that love for yourself, you have no interest in harming anybody.
Mm-hmm. And it is that thing too, that like you said, if you're loving within, you're loving you and you're loving God. It's
yes,
all kind of that one
connected.
same beautiful connected package where you can't separate the two. Because that was so much what I was going to, we're healing this idea of separation. Why do we not have self-love? Well, because we feel separate. Deep down underneath it all, we feel separate from source. We feel separate from God. If you have that place within where it's so entangled and so enmeshed that it just becomes one beautiful energy, then that's the root of self-love, because you're no longer feeling separate. And if you feel connected to God and source within, you can connect to others outside of you. You can, number one, connect to yourself, even in this funny little 3D bodysuit that we have, our little video game avatar running around, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can still connect, and you connect to others and have that sense of spaciousness and grace. Even for what the video game characters do in the video game, so, but I do love that. I think it's important to presence that you can only not have self-love if you're feeling disconnected from the flow of well-being, if you're feeling separate, because if you are that flow of well-being, you are the grace of God, then you immediately have self-love. You don't achieve it. You don't get there. It's not a destination. It's just an experience in the moment. This isn't something to gain. It's only something you can experience moment to moment to moment, or not moment to moment to moment. It's not a destination. It really is that, just the journey of, am I feeling it? Am I not feeling it? Am I feeling disconnected? Am I feeling connected? It's real simple, right?
Yeah. And if people are kind of looking, that feeds right into what I just wrote down again.
Yeah. I'm just lining up the balls so you can hit them out of the park.
Right? And I'm lining up the balls for you too. All right. So that goes right into like, if others are upsetting you, okay.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. If others are upsetting you, if everything around you is chaotic and you're like, oh, I can't get a grip on this person. I can't get a grip on that person. That's when you need to be really quiet for just a moment. I'm not saying like an hour. I'm saying just a moment, and go within and say, okay, where am I upset within myself?
Yeah.
Is my love aligned? Is it not aligned?
Yeah.
Where am I? Am I okay? No, I'm not okay. Why am I not okay? And having that positive self-talk with yourself, and then bringing yourself back up. And I guarantee you, those people are not going to upset you. It's always, and Casey and I have said this so many times on this podcast, and just in general in our lives, to other people, to each other, to our children, it starts with you. Every bit of how you're feeling starts with you. And if you are not in alignment with you, then things are chaotic. So that's your first sign that you're not in alignment, is when someone's pissing you off, you feel like you can't control something. First of all, remove the mind and go back into self. Yeah, God, I'm thinking about like all kinds of things that came up this week, even with my clients, just that lack of self-love, that lack of self-understanding. and how so many of them have, you know, issues going on all over their lives, and they can't seem to grasp and understand why. And it's because it just comes back to they feel lost and out of control within. And so that needs to be put back in place. And I'm telling you, the only way to do it is to love yourself. And I know it sounds so hard for some people, but like we talked about in the beginning, it's just finding that little niche of joy. And I don't know, like we talked about in one of our first podcasts, if that's painting a picture, if that's, you know, knitting or sewing, or, you know, going for a run, or going to the gym, or whatever it is that brings you back and hones you back into the centered source. That's where you need to go as quickly as possible. Screw it if dinner's late, because dinner's going to taste like shit. You know, I think it was actually Abraham Hicks who said, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was Muji. Somebody said this, and I remember thinking, oh, isn't that so true? Like, would you keep eating food that tasted like shit? Would you keep drinking water that tasted like crap? Would you keep driving the same car that kept breaking down and never got you to where you wanted to go? You know, would you keep trying to climb the tree that every branch broke on the way up? Would you still try to climb up it? No, you'd go find a tree that was sturdy with, you know, secure branches. You'd find water that tasted good. You'd find a car that got you where you needed to go. You'd find shoes that didn't have holes in the bottom of them, that you got blisters every time you stepped out of the house on the hot pavement. Like, you have to do those things so to fix your life and make things more enjoyable. So why the hell can't you do it for yourself? You know, you've got holes in there. You've got bad running water in there. You've got nasty, stinky food in there.
But you hit it. You have to care enough. You have to care enough about yourself, just like you would care about your child. If he was starving, you would find a way. You would look for food and find a way, come hell or high water, for food. And why won't we do that for ourselves? You know, why are we suddenly, it's okay to just neglect ourselves or whatever? Like, why is that okay? It's fascinating, right? You wouldn't neglect your child. Why would you neglect yourself?
Exactly.
You know?
And you know, that goes back to, you know, I think it was, I don't know, 15 years ago, I was walking down the streets of Boulder, and we all know Pearl Street. Like, I love it because I'm crazy, but, you know, and I stop and I talk to everybody. Like, I made very good friends with the local homeless one year. I don't know what it was. They just, you know, I was attracted to their lifestyle. They were attracted to things I had to say, and we'd sit on a bench and we talk. And it was so interesting how these people who had supposedly nothing were so incredibly connected to themselves that they could predict anything that was going to occur in a matter of seconds. I mean, I had a homeless man that was talking to me about hummus. I was like, why is he talking to me about hummus? You know, what the hell? And he was asking me how to make hummus. And then all of a sudden, like 2 minutes later, I'm walking down the street and this lady says, would you like to try this hummus?
Oh my gosh. Interesting.
Like, this guy is like so connected to where I was going next. You know, did I like hummus? You know, he was asking all these things, like, what? And then another time I came out of a restaurant and I had leftovers. And this is funny that you say, like, put somebody before you. And this bum, I gave him my food. I said, here you go. I don't need these leftovers, you know. And I had seen him around a little bit. And he said, oh, well, this will be for my dog tonight. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, I ate yesterday, today's his day. And it was kind of like, wow, okay. Well, he shares, you know, he alternates. Like, I got the mask yesterday, the oxygen mask. Now you can have it today, you know, but he still had so much love and joy in him when he was giving, because he was so in sync with himself and how they work together. And so, yeah, you may spend days, you know, putting everybody first, but truly you came first, you know, in that day. So just making sure that you're in connection with you before you start your day. Like, get out of bed and immediately put yourself in connection with you. So, okay, what else do you want to say? Anything?
No, I think that's most of it. I think I'll just kind of as a bandwagon to that, I loved it. They were talking about, you know, kind of your radiance, your emanation in the world, that's your main currency. Like,
Yeah.
aside from money, aside from all this other stuff that we get attached to in the
Right.
physical, but in
Right.
terms of the non-tangibles, like your energy, your radiance, number one, it's important. And number two, it's your main currency. It's what you have to work with. Give yourself something to work with. People, the same way you don't want to be poor, you don't want to have zero money. We all try and live our lives and have a vocation and work hard and have money to then get some things we want and have a lifestyle and all these things. Well, it's the same thing. If your main currency is this energy that you have, then feed that energy, because then that will turn around. That will result in manifesting money. It will result in manifesting relationships. It's the source, and you're not alone. We talked a lot about this. It's like, if you think you're alone to try and make all this happen, that's a lot of extra hard work, that you're going to have to like sweat and labor for. And every little thing, is that right? Is that wrong? You're going to have self-doubt. You're going to have all this stuff, that's very heavy. Versus if you're not alone, you're guided by spirit, there's a flow, then it will. I loved how they called it a currency, that your energy and your radiance is a currency.
Yes.
Like, the word of it was so cool. I just thought, wow, that's really great to think of it in that way, to put that level of value on it. We put value on money. I have $5,000 in my bank account, or, it's like, we have all this value everywhere else, the value of other people, the value, so it's like, what is your value? Do you place value on your currency of the energy that you're putting out, your joy, your love, your flow, your, sense of centeredness and self and source? So it's just a fun way, to play with it and to actually have it be valuable. Because if something's valuable, you make it a priority. Your child is valuable to you, so you put energy in, you make it a priority to take care of that child. It almost takes a level of value. So if you're not doing that for yourself, it's because you're not valuing yourself, and you're not, it's not valuable to you to do that.
So
It's a perception thing. If it's a currency to you and it's valuable, boom, you might shift perception in a moment, and do that. So I loved that. And I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. And can you truly value your child if you don't even value yourself?
Yeah.
That's where you really have to ask yourself that, like, am I truly valuing my child for everything that they are? Probably not, because I don't even value myself for everything that I am.
Yeah. And the deeper you go into that, the deeper you might notice, like, wow, I'm valuing my child more. I'm valuing life more. I'm more present. I'm more grateful. It brings, it allows for all those things versus looking for what's wrong. Here's what's wrong. Here's what's wrong. Here's what's wrong versus, wow, here's what's flowing. Here's what's good. Here's where I'm grateful. It's a total shift in perception that, like you said, then allows you, all of a sudden, you're maybe not going to notice the things about your child or your spouse or whoever that are just really getting to you. Maybe you're just going to naturally notice the things. Wow, that thing about them is so lovable. The more you see in yourself, wow, that thing I do, I love that. I love that in them. Wow, that other thing they do, I do love that. You'll just notice it more naturally. And it kind of, like we were talking at the beginning, then it becomes, that's more your natural state of being. That's when you're making a shift to it, actually self-love as a habit. For a while, you almost have to like work on the habit to noticeably change your self-talk, to noticeably be in the present moment, to noticeably bring it back to center when you've gone out. But then eventually it'll start to happen more naturally. And then you'll look back and go, wow, I really, my God, compared to a year ago, I'm doing so much better. So that's a good thing to work towards, those moments where you're just so in the flow, you almost don't even realize it. And you're just like, wow, I've really come a long way.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're worth it.
Right. It's that whole thing of, do not love yourself for what you have.
Yeah.
Love yourself for the spirit that you have.
Yeah.
That you are. That you are. I mean, you just have to completely dismiss everything, like you were saying, that whole materialistic world has to go away for you to truly appreciate who you really are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and what's cool, so how Kelly and I came about the topic of self-love, I did mention briefly in the podcast last week that Kelly and I are currently developing a course, and the one we're developing happens to be through a women's organization. So we are, gearing it to women, although really 90% of the content is really just for anybody. I mean, probably 99% of it, it's not even women specific. And we'll probably open it up at a certain point. but it was very open, and we were like, what topic, would we do? And immediately Kelly said self-love. And it was like, yeah, that's perfect. It's like, because that's the starting place.
For everything.
Self-love with a capital S, including spirit, including
Mm-hmm.
source, not the little s love.
Right,
There's a big difference. And I like writing it that way. I'm kind of one of those, like in the Bible or whatever, where you write Holy Spirit, and spirit, has a capital S, so it's the big S self, not the little s self. And that was kind of, how we came around to really diving into this topic and thinking about this topic. And we're still in development of the course and how that's going to be offered and when and all of that. But we've really been having a lot of fun with it.
Yes.
And it's allowed us to dive into it for ourselves, And so anyways, that's kind of where the topic came from tonight. So stay tuned. We'll let you know kind of how that's flowing. Like I said, it's a work in progress, but we're pretty excited about it.
It is. I think it's going to be what? Yeah.
Oh, because that's what I was going to say. The name of the course is The Ripple Effect of Deep Self-Love.
Right.
And what we loved about that is it sums up, that was where I was trying to go with this.
Yeah.
It sums up everything we've been talking about tonight in terms of, the ripple effect. If you do have a sense of deep self-love within, the ripple effect of that in your life, in your health, in your relationships, in the world is powerful.
Yes.
And, so it kind of has that love within, the love without, the ripple effects. And that's kind of where we're having a fun time playing with that. The basis, the course is going to start with the self, the person, the you. And then from there, we'll kind of keep branching outwards into the other realms. But I just wanted to throw the name in there because the idea of the ripple effect is very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole key to it. Like we talked about in this podcast just now. I mean, we were trying not to give too much away. So we were like darting around the charts, but it is, it is the essence of what is going to come for you. Based off of how you are doing within. So,
and eventually the course, might be available as like more of a, even if you don't do it live, like a video download kind of thing. So I think it'll be offered in a variety of ways. And we're kind of playing with that as moving forward. This podcast has been like an incubator and we love that, and we'll continue with that. But then, there could be like little offshoots. And this has been, a fun offshoot of, okay, how do we now with a group of people, really deepen into that and really allow them to dive deeper into some of these topics that we're exploring, kind of in more of like a group setting where the energy of the group, contributes to everybody kind of in that same ripple effect idea.
Yeah.
So we're having a fun time playing with that. And, that contributes to our own sense of centeredness and what we're up to. So
exactly.
it'll be fun.
Yeah. I'm really excited about that course. Actually, I'm excited to hear what comes out of our mouths.
I know. Kind of like tonight. We had a very rough outline of something. And I actually loved what we did because just kind of free flowing. A lot of thoughts came out because for the first time over the last 2 weeks, I wasn't like thinking about, the podcast topic and really what I was going to say. I barely had any notes whatsoever. And it was good to just see what came out and what flowed out. I enjoyed that. That was
I know,
fun,
but the only notes that I developed were off of conversation. I was like, oh, I have to remember to say that,
Perfect. I like that. I really like that. Well, do you want to read your passage from Spirit?
Yeah, let me just kind of intro how this, let's do it. And so this is interesting. I was telling Casey, I got this, it was actually yesterday that I was getting a, like constant hit in the head, like we have something to say,
If you can slow down for 2 minutes and write it down.
And I was like, I'm cleaning the house. And I even told Casey that I was like, if as soon as I sit down to acknowledge it, I may have a passage.
Seriously?
So I actually didn't sit down to acknowledge it till like today at 3:00.
Really? That's great.
So instead, perfect. And I didn't get a meditation. Yeah. And I didn't get my meditation in today. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I think they went directly into trying to get me to meditate through it. Now that's just like hitting me just now, because I told Casey, I said, this is like a meditation passage.
Yeah.
And I told my guides as they're, streaming it to me, I'm like, I can't close my eyes. Like I have to write.
Oh, seriously.
Like, okay, we'll kind of do a combo of both. So
I love that.
So if it doesn't make a lot of sense, it's because I probably cut a few parts out because I conked out and I'm just
that's so funny.
Out in my own world. So this is a really interesting passage. I'm just going to preface it like that. No disrespect to you guys, So, okay. All right. So this is, I invite everybody to close their eyes and to become a part of this meditation, because it's a very visual meditation. All right. Close your eyes and dive deep into your heart. Stay there for a moment. Look around. Quiet your mind to a soft whisper and feel the presence of your spirit. Now, I want you to envision God coming through the light of your heart to join you and embrace you. As he holds you in his arms, he is going to ask you to let go. Please, he says, let go. Let go of your fears. Let go of your hate. Let go of your sadness, your confusion, your unrest, and betrayal and anger. Let go of your need for others to love you. Be the love and the peace that I am. Feel God all around you, holding you, and watch all of your difficulties drip off of you like rainwater upon leaves of a giant oak tree. Feel God's warmth, his love, and his presence within you. You are his child, and you are loved and treasured. We want you to know this feeling for the rest of your existence. Now, God is going to lift you up and allow for you to see the sky in all of its colors and shapes. Do you see this? He is going to lift you further now so that you can see the stars, the planets, the cosmos, the universal poles and shifts. Do you feel this? Now dive down with him all the way to the bottom of the ocean floor and look at all the mystery and beauty that you have never ever seen before. As you swim back to the surface with God, take a deep breath and move with him back into your heart. This is love, he says, the possibility of all things, the ups and downs, the visions, the views, all of this is a part of you. How can you not love this? How can you not love that this is you? Love you for you are the impossible and the possible, the beauty and the truth, the salvation, the survivor, and the savior. You are me. You are God. You are pure love. Now, my child, as I place you down, I wish for you never to forget this moment, for this moment is now, and now is ever present. That's it. You can open your eyes.
Oh, that was lovely.
So yeah, that was their little meditative self-love thing for people to, maybe that's a way that you find self-love. I didn't even think of that because I'm like sitting here today and I was like, what is a way other than, literally a ripple effect of finding joy and letting that overtake you, finding little things. But I guess this could be one, just spending time in meditation is always healing.
Yeah. Because it's spending time with God. It's spending time with yourself. It's being still. It's being quiet.
Yeah. Because that is what meditation is to many of us, is that time with God, where there is no thought. There is no, mind traveling anywhere, any direction. It's just stillness. It's quiet. And, you really can get in touch with things that way. So
yeah, and you can visualize like you just did, going on adventures, not alone, with the energy of God, however you see that. What was really beautiful, what came to me when, you were going through that whole thing was that, the golden bubble I always talk about, that I visualize myself within. I was like, oh, that's my God bubble. That's what I'm being held in. Not like I didn't know that, but I don't know, it like deepened, like my understanding of that
for you.
Deepened, like really feeling held and contained in this like liquid gold, beautiful sense of love, which is self, which is God, which is all of it, which is the entangled connection, not separate from, but that was beautiful because I was like, oh, I just felt so, held. And it doesn't go anywhere. It's always there if I am in touch with it. In an instant, it's always present. But am I present to it?
Well, it's
that was beautiful.
It's a good way to, because I think a lot of people are hesitant on meditation partly because it is such a lonesome
Yeah.
thing, it's like, what do you mean I have to go and be quiet with myself? And it's like, well, again,
because it can be really
find that
noisy when you
self-love.
get by yourself, right? Like it's just like the
Can be.
noise.
Yeah. And so it's
You
like,
have to
just
listen to
take
some
that.
of the noise.
Yeah, just take that away. Just be with God. Be with yourself. It's such a great thing to just be with
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I like that.
love yourselves, and I'll
Yeah.
post that so you can, people can read it to themselves, or
Perfect.
just give themselves a visual when they're.
And yeah, I'll try and note in the notes, like at what, timestamp it was, so that if people want to go back and listen to it,
Yeah.
they can kind of like scroll back, because that was really lovely.
So
I like that.
too bad we
Thank
didn't have any
you.
like good music. You should have been singing. Next time I won't let you close your eyes. I'll be like, and accompanied by.
Oh, seriously. Oh, that would be great. Or have like that I Am meditation music by Wayne Dyer in the
Yeah.
background. That's what I started using
Yeah.
on my meditations. That's what I was playing in the background, because it is.
Well,
It's lovely.
Well, and plus it actually is all those tuning forks, and
Yeah.
the bowls are all vibration of God. Like they
Yeah.
actually did like a full on study of those
Yeah.
and put them into that vibration of God energy. So that's
Yeah.
why, it calls to me too. The other one that calls to me and everyone should check out, and we should put her on the bottom, is
Yeah.
Meilon.
Oh, I love her. Oh my goodness. Because her singing combined with the bowls is like unbelievable.
She'll put you in a trance you've never ever known.
Oh, seriously.
So
Seriously.
I'd like to just go lie down on the floor.
Oh my goodness. No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, powerful.
So, yeah. Well, there's some things people can look into, anything that helps you kind of jive and get back with you. Yep. We're all for it. So,
yep.
Especially during this time.
Oh, seriously.
Blessed.
Blessed. We are blessed. Who we are is the love within, no matter what is happening outside, inside. Tap in and play with it. That's the other thing. Have it, a sense of lightness and humor. I mean, half the time that's how I express self-love, is by like just like chuckling at myself. Yeah. Even if you're like, oh my God, sweetie, like that was, like, oh, that was like so funny, or like you do that thing, or like did it again, like if you can have some lightness about it, that's half the game right there. It's just that's the spaciousness, and then you'll by default kind of start to give that to others as well. Like we get so serious and we get so weighed down and like, oh my God, how could I have done that? That's, it's like,
please
kind of, laugh about it. I even tell my son that it's like, well, you can't do anything about it now. You can only do better the next time. Like all you can do is move forward and have some sense within yourself that maybe I'll handle that differently next time. Have a good attitude, have the kind of attitude that looks for the good, that looks for, okay, well, I didn't do that so well, but I did do that. And then next time I would like to do this more, and the more you care, the more it's a priority, the more it's important, the more you'll do it, the more you'll notice it, the more you'll, start to turn it into more of a habit. But it has to be important. You do have to care. You do have to care about yourself. Right. You do have to be important to yourself. Yep. So play with that, have fun with that. We have no idea what our topic is going to be for the next podcast, but we'll come up with something.
It'll arrive somewhere.
Oh, seriously. But thanks for tuning in. Again, if you have any comments or you have any topics you would love for us to explore, please just let us know. You can private message us. You can type in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Yeah. We always love to hear, any reactions or thoughts you might have. So, and stay tuned for upcoming offerings.
Yes. Love to you all.
Love
Enjoy
you.
your weekend. Bye-bye. Love you.
Bye.